are people going to turn on Jordan Peele if Nope is not good?
I'm hoping to get your thoughts on this. I found a 2017 article in the Financial Review about Steven Spielberg, and the writer says, few great film directors are as picked on as Steven Spielberg. And then the article continues to say, partly this is down to his outsized success, which sits ill at ease with our notion of an artist. I find that interesting. Do you think success brings a distrust of the artist after a while?
It brings more criticism, for sure. Because when you have someone like Steven Spielberg who raised the bar so much very early on, I mean, Jaws, what that did for like the horror movie genre, and it's still talked about to this day. Jurassic Park, Schindler's List. The older he gets, the projects he takes on, they're not as many home runs, or they're not as consistent. But I think he's making movies that are more what he wants to do. He's kind of earned the right to make the movies that he wants to make. And that piece makes me immediately think of West Side Story, because there was so much criticism around West Side Story. And I'm not saying that they were wrong, but there was a lot of criticism with the Latino culture about how they were presented in the movie and how a certain filmmaker should have been directing that movie. But I think he's at a point where he's kind of a legacy director, and he's earned his stripes, that if you're a studio and Steven Spielberg walks into your office and goes, hey, I want to remake West Side Story, I don't really think anyone's going to turn him down.
Right.
And I think people forget about that. And there is a discussion to be had there about whether certain filmmakers really should be tackling certain topics and whether other filmmakers would be better suited for that. But I do think you kind of earn your right to do a lot of stuff when you've proven yourself so much. And so much of film history is centered around what you have accomplished. I mean, Close Encounters. I mean, Indiana Jones. Like, there's so much stuff that he has been a part of that you can't take away from. It's just like you kind of get a pass. You kind of get to do what you want. But I do think that the older a director becomes, the more criticism he faces. And you don't have to just use Steven Spielberg. Look at Martin Scorsese. How many people have been criticizing him more? Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
How many people criticize him now? I mean, Woody Allen for other reasons, but I mean, Woody Allen has always been sort of a one-note filmmaker, right? It's always a rich socialites getting together for something. He's been making the same movie since the 80s, but only because of the controversy around him that people start being like, oh, he's not that good of a director. It's like, I don't know. He's like literally been making the same movie over and over again. Like, so if this is not good, then those other movies weren't that good either. So yeah, I think at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to, is that I think it's easy to become a punching bag, but it's even more easy to be a punching bag in a modern age when you're an older white guy. It's something that I definitely noticed. People are not afraid to throw older white men underneath the bus anymore.
And in terms of the scope of West Side Story, I mean, there were a lot of cast members, right?
Yeah.
So to give this to a newer director would be, I mean, this is someone who's directed large-scale production, so not just his name, but also the expertise.
I mean, some would argue that he didn't have a background in musicals. Again, the story, the subject matter is very sensitive. And you're talking about a movie that came out originally in the 50s. And people have problems with that, regardless of whether Rita Moreno is in it. They still have problems with the way that that story was told. And people still view it as a classic, but again, like a lot of movies made in different generations, they don't necessarily are up to par with the way things are today. And I think that's the problem. I think if Steven Spielberg wanted to remake West Side Story in the 90s, the approach and the criticism on it would have been a lot different.
Sure.
Nowadays, it's sort of like, no, why didn't like Lin-Manuel Miranda direct that? He would have been a much better director. He's Latino. He would have gotten the storyline. He would have given more emotion. You know, and that movie also unfairly got a lot of hate because of the whole Ansel Elgort thing and people criticizing them for like nobody going and bashing him on that tour, which is like, I think people forget that just because one person does something crappy to one person doesn't mean that he's crappy to everyone. You know, this is not a Harvey Weinstein situation on our hands. And sometimes people can get called out and they can learn from their mistakes. And it also depends on the person's age. He's a young guy. We make a lot of bad decisions when we're in high school and college.
Sure.
And he probably just made a bad decision. So as long as he learns from it and grows from it, it's fine. But that movie, I didn't love that movie, but I feel like that movie really got like the shit end of the stick. I don't know how else to put it, because I feel like it was just always on the chopping block for so many people.
And so going forward, maybe younger directors who are earning their stripes, is that something that they will have to face? That they will be, once you get to be a certain level, now you're just, you have a target on your back, basically.
I mean, it's so hard how everyone turns on someone now, right? Like we saw it with Patty Jenkins with 1984. Everyone loved Wonder Woman. Everyone loved Monster. And then all of a sudden, everyone turned. Like we forget that filmmakers and actors, they're not perfect. They take roles, they make movies that sometimes don't work, or they don't connect, they don't resonate. And it's so weird because I don't know how to answer that question, because I almost feel like it is dependent on a person. Like, are people going to turn on Jordan Peele if Nope is not good? I don't know. And then it becomes this weird conversation about, is it a race thing? Is it a sexual orientation thing? Is it what the person stands for? Like, are we, like, because Jordan Peele is such a inspiring filmmaker and someone who's so ambitious and takes chances and made 2 movies that were very critically acclaimed, is it okay because he's a person of color who puts other people of color in his movies for Nope? And I'm not saying, I don't know, I haven't seen it, but if Nope is not good, will he get the pass because of all the other things he's done? Or will people turn on him and be like, oh, I guess that gravy train's over. This guy's a terrible filmmaker. What a terrible movie. It's so hard to know anymore because you watch everyone turn so quickly on someone, and it doesn't matter what it is. It's a really weird time to be in this industry because you say one thing wrong and a whole entire group of people can turn against you. You make one bad film and it's like they lost it. It's crazy. I don't know. I mean, it's such a weird way to think, because we started this question with Steven Spielberg. And I mean, Steven Spielberg has consistently made a good movie and a bad movie, a good movie and a bad movie, a good movie and a bad movie. It's just the way that it is. And again, it's all subjective. Mm-hmm. Film, all art is subjective. What's bad to some might be good to someone else.